thing. You know, I'm always thinking, even of television, like you're talking about, like the 3-camera setup. That's how I imagine it entirely, as opposed to like a lot of television shows that are built like movies, stuff like that. So, did he give you specific details, or did you read it, or you check it out later and then like get what he meant?
Yeah, I definitely got what he meant, because there's like I studied film, and so yeah, I'm seeing it as there were a lot of where I was kind of shooting things, and this was also more out of time constraints and just trying to get things done, but like one camera setup, not necessarily using the camera much to convey, you know, moods or emotions. He pointed out there was a scene where, you know, I dolly in tight on one character as like there's talking going on behind them. He's like, yeah, you know, this is the sort of stuff you should be working on, and but a lot of my other scenes were, you know, here's just two people, and they're, yeah, it's almost like the camera's like a proscenium more than a camera.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And I saw that. You know, that was something that I put a lot of time and money and effort into, and makes a lot of money for me. And it's on the internet. It's been up for 4 years. It has 100 views, which are probably all cast and crew, and like 50 of them were my mom, I bet. But
thanks, Mom.
But it's one of those things where it's like, I'm proud of it, but I do see where it could be better. And then part of me's like, you know, I want to say a week after I stopped shooting it, like I had all my footage, I joined the New Movement community. So I think now, like, I know people and would have resources to redo it better. But it's like, do I do that or do I write something new? You know, that's semi-autobiographical in a part of my life that's, you know, 10 years ago at this point. And a lot of the things I was doing, I feel, were unique at the time that I wrote it. But even at the time that I made it, like, I think Happy Endings had just come out. And there's a lot of similarities there, because it was about a point in my life where I was living with my roommate who was a gay man, and he's very butch just in general, and I'm a flamboyant musical theater guy. Like, so it's like there's this weird, as far as stereotypes go, role reversal, and that was kind of the crux of the show. And I think a lot of things have tackled that since. And I think a lot of the things, because at the time, you know, and you know, originally living with him probably about 10 years ago at this point. At the time, I spoke with him a lot, and we didn't write together because he's not, you know, a television writer, but he did have some input, and at the time it felt fresh, and they felt like new ideas, and now I feel like a lot of the tropes that we were basing it on don't carry anymore. Like, people don't think of, like going back to what I just mentioned, like with Hamilton becoming a huge, like, total crossover hit. Other musicals are kind of getting this crossover exposure. And I just think, you know, an awkward way to say this, but just with a greater acceptance of gay people in the gay community, that, you know, these jokes that were based on, like, haha, people think that straight guy is gay and he has no problem with it, might not fly as well now.
Sure. Yeah, definitely not. Probably not. It is interesting how that is. Like, I was watching, like, 90s stand-up the other day and being like, wow, 100% of these jokes would be booed out of a stadium right now. Like, it's just a different world altogether, you know? And I feel like, I mean, we're all in our 30s. I think we're about to be the generation going, man, you know, back in the day, those kids, you know, even just discussing the technology that's happened in our short lives. I mean, to any audience member listening to this who's like in their 50s or older, they're like, ugh, fucking 30-year-olds talking about how old they are. But it's like, we've at least seen 30 years of a world. And to note the changes as it goes around. I was telling some of the guys today, I just got this new journal. Oh, it's right there holding the microphone up. I got this new journal, and it's a 5-year journal. It's like a 1 line a day. You just write, like, it's got like 2 or 3 lines on it. You just write something that's going on with you that day, and then you do it every day for 5 years. And the idea is you can look at, like, just the breadth of changes, or, like, if you're always sad around the holidays, you can recognize that and be like, oh, it's not me. It just happens to be this time of year makes me feel a little yucky, you know, whatever. And then you can release yourself from feeling like you've done something. It's like, nope, it's just the cycle of life or whatever thing. But I was telling one of the guys today that it was like, I forget what it's like to date. Like, it's, I have been, my husband and I have been married for 5 years, but we were dating for like 4. So we've been together for 9 years now. I have not gone on a date or tried to date a person for 9 years. It's a long time. Like, and so I forget, and the whole landscape of dating would be different for me if I had to go back to do it. But even just the time, just like what I did, how the early level of the internet got involved in it, you know, about halfway through my 20s, like what that was and like how it felt. You know, sometimes I'll read some of these girls' tweets about loneliness, and I'll be like, come on. But it's like, no, I felt that in various points. I was like, try to remember, but I can't anymore. And so I told them, like, whatever is happening in your life, write it down and capture it for what it was. So to that, I think, like, what you wrote captures that moment in your life. It captures the year that it was written, the society around which you were able to make these jokes, and the, like, relationship that you had with your roommate that you'll never remember. Like, 10 years ago you said, and it's great that you still remember it and you still have this, like, thing, but who knows when you'll be like, oh yeah, I lived with him, didn't I? Weird, great. You know, and like every new change in your life is something to, like, remember and write a thing on. So I would urge you to write about what's happened to you in the last 10 years. Like, what has life been like? What's your experience of it? Is Austin different? Has it been, you know, long-term relationship lessons? Is it like what it's like to move around, what it's like to have a certain kind of job? I was telling somebody, one of my level 1 students, he was talking to me about his day job. And he was like, oh, you know, it's all right. You know, it's interesting, I guess. And I do stand-up comedy. And when he described his job to me, I was like, that sounds like there's so much to make fun of. I was like, there's a ton. I was like, think of it as your little gold mine. I was like, no, I've never heard of a job like the job you're telling me you have. And I love it. It sounds cool and interesting, and tell me everything about it. And he's so funny because it was like a security thing. So he was like, well, I can't really tell people. Like, I know, of course you can't tell them what really happened. Right. But, like, I'm sure there's like this kind of thing happens regularly. You know, you don't give anyone specific details where it's like, well, I went to this lady's house and checked her house out. And she's like, no, but you can make up what, if you're security for people, then you're seeing their ins and outs and in a way that other people aren't able to. And it's like, dude, there's so much there. And I told them, I waited until everybody else in the class arrived, and then I said, guys, if you have to have a job, then please use that job to get as much material as you can. Whatever your job is, write it down, because someday you won't be a guy in a cubicle or a person working at a call center or like the front desk of a hotel or whatever. Like, you'll forget what that's like. And there's so much there, you know, and there's hundreds of people who have that same job who would watch it and be like when I first watched The Office, I was never really a person who worked in an office. I've had a few office jobs, but I've never really spent that much time in an office 9-to-5 situation. So those shows, they lose me. I don't get it. But I understand why the 90% of everyone else who does have a job like that watches it and they're like, I identify. This is amazing. So I would love to see what you have in your brain, not only what you learned from the new style of theater, the like comedy theater world you were talking about that's different, but like even what you learned about film and shots and different things like that to write a story about the life you've lived. Because you'll write a thing, you'll make a video, or you'll make a short film, or hell, make a feature film about this time in your life, and 20 years from now you'll be like, oh, remember when I was, oh, look at me, I didn't know, you know. And that's the best to recall, because everyone associates, everyone is like, this is the life that I live, this is how I can connect to it. What is so just to wrap it up, Chris, for you, I know that I'm sort of call to action to you to be like, make this feature film, but like, is there a goal or something you're working on? You said you were working on writing and stuff like that. And are you doing screenplays? Are you doing like TV scripts? And are you writing your own? What are you doing? Or maybe that's not what's important to you. What's important to you?
Yeah, no, I understand. Right now I feel like I'm staring at blank screens a lot.
So you're a writer, I get it.
I wrote a pilot last year, like I guess a rough draft of a pilot last year, based on an idea that I had a long time ago. And there were things about it I liked, there were things about it I knew I needed to change. One of my friends offered to read it and just like eviscerated it, just like tore it apart. And I've been thinking about it a lot, which is a lot of my process, is just thinking. I mean, ideally, I want to be in television, and I would love to have my own show, but I'd also just love to be on someone else's show and get to work with a good group of people putting out something that we all enjoy and hopefully an audience enjoys. I've had that experience doing live things, but that feels so ephemeral, like it's just gone after we do it. Like even when someone comes up after a show and it's like, hey, it was a good show, like when can I see you again or something like that, like I don't always immediately have an answer to that question. And so I feel like I'm not retaining an audience. And so that's kind of a bummer sometimes. But yeah, I'm just kind of still shooting for that goal and hoping that it's something I can still obtain at some point.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Cool. Yeah, there's so many people out there that are, trying to write in the long format, so it's interesting to try to think of it in a shorter scenario. For me, I'm like, I've been focused on feature-length screenplays, if only just so that I can figure out how to do it. Because we've been doing sketches in short form, like improv for so long that I was like, okay, I can write 3 minutes. Can I write 2 hours? But I don't know. That's fascinating. Is there any show that you love? What's your favorite television show right now that you're watching?
Probably Bob's Burgers.
Awesome.
I go to that one a lot.
And it's got the musical stuff in it too.
Yeah,
that's so great.
Yeah, and it's also I think what I like about that is just on both sides, like their talent and their writing. It seems like it's people that have been in the game for a long time. They've just somehow managed to have staying power over the last 20 years. So
yeah,
it's a great example of what I would like to achieve.
Yeah, awesome. Is the people that make Bob's Burgers, are they the same as the ones who made home movies? I mean, home videos? Home movies? It's home movies.
Yeah, the cartoon, yeah.
Lauren
Bouchard?
Yeah, he's...
Is it who it is?
Works on it.
Okay. Yeah, because because I hear the voice of Bob, what's his name?
Archer, whatever.
Benjamin.
H. John Benjamin, yeah. Whenever I hear him, I assume it's the same because he was in that too. He's in home movies. and it's like, oh, this is just a crowd that keeps doing things together.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, sort of, but it's kind of how that works, but kind of not